would like to introduce Zbigniew Michalewicz, famous for his solutions in business intelligence. Hello.
Yes, hello. Very nice to be here and talk to you.
So I've got a few questions about your experiences in business intelligence. At first, maybe what to avoid, what mistakes can we avoid when trying to take decisions based on knowledge, on data analysis, what not to do?
This is really very difficult question, and I don't think there is any particular element which you shouldn't do. Probably the most important activity is to convince the current end user who is doing everything manually know that you are replacing his manual activities by some system, by some recommendation. It is usually very difficult to convince a person that the system can do something better than human. And especially when you talk to a person with 10-15 years of experience, and very often you feel this resistance saying, hey, I've been doing it for the last 15 years, now you are coming with this business intelligence solution, some smart software which would make decisions for me. So probably the thing to avoid at all cost is to present your system as decision-making system. Rather, you should talk about decision support system. The system would suggest a few possibilities, and you as an end user, as a human, would be making the final selection, final recommendation. So don't sell your systems as decision-making systems, but rather some tool which would assist users in making better decisions.
Oh, okay. When you're trying to maybe not sell, but when implement that system, do you see any ways how to maybe extract that knowledge from that person who, as you said, could use their own maybe analog solutions? Very often they are analog solutions for the past 10, 15, sometimes 30 years, and they are used to them. And how to do it, as you said, how to convince that person to stop using their own solutions and switch to some software solutions?
This is again very good question, and there are many things I can provide here. I remember one of the projects from, I don't know, 12, 11 years ago, when we were building a scheduling system for some casting company. They were making variety of items from iron, including some engines for Holden cars in Australia and so on. And at that time I realized that we talk about probably 20 or 30 different types of iron, and there was one of the types was called white iron. There was some chemical in that and so on. And we noticed that whatever scheduler does, items from white iron are casted on Thursdays only. And we asked him, why did you do it on Thursdays? And he said, I have no idea. For the last 20 years, this is basically what happened. And at some stage we met someone very experienced who said that there was some very experienced guy, and he was part-timer. He was coming, to the company once a week on Thursdays, and these items that require white iron require also his expertise. So basically it happened by chance, and this rule stuck. So the guy is gone. They have expertise in house, but for some reason, the current scheduler is scheduling all these jobs on Thursdays only, which of course is not optimal, is crazy, and things are as they are. So altogether, it is very iterative process. So you are coming with some solution recommended by your optimizer, and you sit next to the scheduler and you consult with him, saying, hey, do you like this solution? Would you change something? And very often he says, oh yes, I hate it. This is crazy. I mean, you can't do these two items together. And then you try to drill down. Why is wrong? After all, the optimizer has indicated that. And then he said, because of this and that rule. If you do this and that, there is some safety requirements and so on. The point is that these practitioners, they have additional rules which didn't emerge during user requirements process. When you collect user requirements, it is next to impossible to get all this knowledge on objectives and requirements and constraints and things you can do and things you can't do and so on. So whatever you do, the first iteration is sort of failure in the sense that you can't implement it directly. You just talk to this person, and as I said, during this process you are convincing him that it is a system that would help him. For example, what we did, going back to this example with white iron, we design a system when you can go to some specification tab and you can click on the number of days in a week when you can do things from white iron. So you can still click Thursdays only, and then you ask optimizer what is the best solution. But then you can experiment. If I allow it to do it on Thursday and Friday, what would happen? What would be a recommended solution? But anyway, there is no any magic wand or workaround. You have to work closely with end user, explaining the way optimizer is searching and recommending the solution. In the process, you discover new objectives, new constraints, and so on. You incorporate these into your optimizer. And very often the number of iterations is 5 or 6 and so on. The key element is the end user should have a high level of degree of confidence in the system he does, and he also should feel that he is in control. He can, for example, for white iron, he can do it on Thursday only, as he used to, or he can set this environment the way he is comfortable with. And later you can talk to some higher level manager saying that you can relax these constraints, it is not necessary, and this and that. But it is very, very difficult process because you are dealing with human emotions and pride and everything.
Right, and well, during the lecture, you talked about adaptive business intelligence. I would ask you, what are the challenges, the main challenges in building the adaptive side of business intelligence?
First of all, as you know, business intelligence itself is just transformation of data to knowledge. And I coined this term adaptive business intelligence to reflect 3 additional modules: this predictive module, optimization module, and this adaptive loop. So we can talk about 3 challenges here. When you extract all knowledge from your data, from your historical data, now you should be able to build a predictive model. And this is a challenge in itself. To make a prediction, like this famous baseball player from US used to say, prediction is very tough, especially about the future. Now, it was, of course, a joke. But anyway, building any predictive model is a challenge because it is impossible to include all variables of the real world. So by definition, model is a simplification. So to make some accurate predictive model is probably the most important challenge. Note that optimizer would base on predictive model. If optimizer would suggest do this and that, Then to evaluate proposed solution, you have to use predictive model. If I do this and that, then predictive model would tell you, oh, the price, if you send this car over there, then for this car you will get this and that price and so on. So if you screw up on prediction, the optimizer is worthless because there is nothing to optimize. If you can't predict what would happen, the optimizer can't perform. So out of these two, predictive model is much harder and much more important than optimizer. And then adaptive loop is also a challenge. You notice, and with some regular intervals, you compare predicted results with actual results. And always there are some deviations, and you have to design some algorithm how to update predictive model to stay in current. Otherwise, the system would be obsolete and you can forget about it. So the main challenges, I would say, first is to build a predictive model with high level of reliability, and the second challenge is to close adaptive loop, because optimizer by itself is the easiest one. In a sense, you consider many possible scenarios and you try to select the best out of many. So it is, you can do it this way or that way. It is not that challenging in comparison to the other two.
Okay. Well, in general, I would say that optimizing a single step of the whole process seems to be relatively easy, as you said during the lecture. The real problems start when you have to optimize the whole process, including a number of steps. And in such a case, where should we start that optimization? Should we start from the beginning of the process, from the end of the process, or should we keep on looking at everything at once all the time?
Yes. To be honest, I don't know the answer for that, because it was fortunate or unfortunate in the same time that we sold the company which researched this very issue too early, and we didn't conclude this with some recommendation or some ready product and so on. On the other hand, we were lucky because after a few months later there was the end of mining boom in Australia, and it will be very difficult to sell the company which was based on mining customers. So on one hand we were very lucky, but from scientific point of view, unfortunately I didn't finish it. Still our systems were, I would say, more experimental than mature products, and many solutions we used at that time were ad hoc solutions. So we developed different optimizers for different components, and then we try to add meta optimizer, which would basically talk directly to different optimizers. But it was very, very difficult altogether, and some solutions we use were sort of problem specific rather than general. The main difficulty is that these steps, individual steps, they interact with each other. They are not independent. So optimal solution in one step may cause some trouble upstream or downstream and so on. And from human perspective, it was also very difficult, because you have to convince some managers which are responsible for particular steps that they should settle for lower quality solution, because overall it would be better for the whole company. But all, you know, bonuses and rewards are based on your performance, not performance of the whole company. So suddenly you talk to the manager saying, hey, decrease your profits a little bit, it will be better for other steps, other managers. But so difficult. You have really to talk to very high level of individuals and the company level to understand everything, and to convince people that you know, the goals of the company are number one, and these individual steps are, they should support it, not the other way around. But I don't have any particular methodology. The approach we have selected was to build a special optimization tools for each particular silo or step, and then provide this overall layer which calls on different optimizer, changing constraints and exploring different possibilities. But it was tough, and again, I didn't finish this research with any sort of recommended way how to do it.
Okay, and in the end, maybe what are the perspectives of the business intelligence area for today and for the near future?
This is a very good question. I am a little bit skeptical about business intelligence. I am observing this, what is happening in some companies all over the world. The popular trend is to have these few hundred data scientists, and they do business intelligence, they provide reports and so on. But in the same time, we hear more and more about some disappointing results, because you can have all knowledge available which are discovered by this huge team of data scientists. This from my lecture, the example I gave was this 23 people who basically they knew everything in car industry about prices, different auctions, and new body styles, and they had access to the black book and blue book and individual reports, daily reports from each action sites. Their offices were wallpapered by graphs, tables, and reports. And still, their problem was what is the best distribution. They were unable to do it. So I guess there is a limit. I think there is some too much emphasis on just business intelligence, and business intelligence is really reporting. Basically, whether you use Cognos, whether you use any other classic software for business objects or whatever, you are getting reports. And then you can get all reports in the world, like your data mining activities indicate that, let's say, 35% of your products are sold on East Coast. Okay, that's very good, but what should I do? Should I build additional warehouse over there? Should I hire 3 employees? Or what decision should I make based on this piece of knowledge? So I guess still there is some gap, and I guess the next step, which already you can see these days, but again, data scientists are charged with that. What should I do? My favorite slide, which unfortunately I didn't include in my presentation, is an empty slide with one red circle. And when I display this slide, very often I say my 20 years business experience can be summarized on this particular slide. The dream of most business managers these days is to have a computer system, computer software with one red button. You press this button and the system will tell you, what should I do? This is the dream, this is the goal. And this data science, business intelligence is the very important, but just first step towards that goal. But imagine that you are big business manager, you enter your office on Monday morning, you press this button, and the system would tell you, do this and that happened, this is sick, this employee is sick, there is a delay on this delivery, and so on. In this warehouse there is a shortage, this and that action is do this and that, and so on. This is what people are after. What should I do? With some justification, support, what if scenarios, if this and that, and so on. So still, I guess there's a long way in front of us, and the first steps are already happening. And it is a really great challenge to be just one of the front runners to create, try at least to create software which is providing these answers for people who need them.
Okay, so basically we are getting closer and closer every time, but still we are working on over some tool. It's like if maybe it's like some years ago we were thinking pretty much the same way about computers as we are thinking about business intelligence nowadays. Computers themselves were perceived as something that is supposed to solve all the problems, and after some time they finally became what they were created for. They became tools.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can agree with your comment, and yeah, the next few years probably we would see emergence of a variety of tools for variety of verticals for different purposes, like Salesforce to support sales, or some other systems for other activities. All these tools are based on business intelligence and AI in general, to be faster, to be smarter, to make better, more meaningful recommendation. With self-learning components, if you make a mistake, which you can't avoid it, but you can avoid it in the next iteration under similar circumstances. So I'm very sure there will be a lot of excitement in front of us, and new systems, new companies would be emerging on a monthly basis here and there.
So thank you for conversation.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.